Welcome to Awesome Movie Year, the podcast where we take a look back at an awesome year for movies, which is every year. I'm Josh Bell, film critic and writer, and I'm joined by my co-host.
I'm Jason Harris, filmmaker, comedian, and now that we've got these intros out of the way, let's get to the main event. It's time to circumcise Josh.
Some really graphic circumcision action going on in this film that we're about to discuss.
It was all under a cover. It's not like you saw them do the snipping.
No, but you see there's a lot of kid nudity in this movie that I found kind of alarming.
Was there a lot of kid nudity? I didn't get any, maybe because I watched it on YouTube. So
yeah, I don't know if you guys somehow saw a different cut, but you're right, in the circumcision scene, they don't literally show the snipping, but they show the kids' genitals there, and they show the device being attached to it.
We didn't get any of that on our cut.
Wow. Well, you guys, that's what you get for watching illegal pirated versions of the movies that we're discussing on the podcast.
Poor us. We didn't get child's penises in circumcision devices. I feel pretty good about my choice on this one, Josh.
I'm just saying you didn't get the full experience of the film. So we'll get into that, I guess. This is our season on the films of 1985, and we're here at the Cannes Film Festival Palme d'Or winner, which is When Father Was Away on Business, from director Emir Kusturica, a renowned Serbian filmmaker, although at the time that this film was made, he was Yugoslavian because that nation had not been broken up yet. And this is about sort of the difficulties of Yugoslavia in the 1950s. And I think it was difficult for us to engage with this film, perhaps.
It would have been more difficult for me and Dave if we had to watch child's dongs get cut. So I'm glad we saw the version that we did. But this goes back to that whole hey, Cannes, what are we doing? What are we doing? Looking back, what are we doing? What are we doing, Cannes? What are we doing?
I mean, we may not have been into this film particularly, although I was not super engaged with this film, although I could see how it would be acclaimed and would win an award at an international film festival, the kind of film festival that often gives awards to movies like this that are about people's struggles during times of political oppression, that are kind of slow and inward looking. I mean, I'm sure we've talked about multiple movies like this. Winter Sleep comes to mind.
Which was also a winner, right? So,
right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think we've talked about movies like this related to winning Cannes, and that was one that was in a relatively recent season from 2014. So it doesn't surprise me that this movie is a Cannes winner. It doesn't surprise me also that we were not perhaps the number one target audience for this film, but I can totally see it having won.
Other directors who had movies in that year: Alan Parker, some guy named Jean-Luc Godard, a bum named Nicholas Roeg, some idiot named Peter Bogdanovich, another loser named Clint Eastwood, and some dude we've never heard of named Paul Schrader. So I get it.
I mean, those aren't necessarily the best or most notable movies from those films.
I will give you that, except Paul Schrader, Mishima, Life in 4 Chapters is regarded as, if not his best, one of his best. So.
Yeah. I mean, that's obviously, if you get to compete in Cannes, it's probably a worthwhile film anyway. But the other thing about Cannes or Sundance or any of the film festivals that we talk about and look at the award winners is it's often just sort of a quirk of who they've recruited to be on the jury. And it's not surprising to me, looking at this jury this year, that the jury president was Milos Forman. And you can definitely see that Czech New Wave influence on this film. So he wasn't the only one deciding, but to be sort of leading the way to pick a movie like this makes some sense to me.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And that's a good point, and a real deep, nerdy film cut.
I mean, I feel like we are familiar with Jason. You and I are certainly familiar with. We've talked about Milos Forman multiple times on this podcast.
Yeah, both his English language films and his Czech films. So no, I'm just saying it's a film nerd deep cut. You have to.
I guess.
Yeah.
So this movie, it won both the Palme d'Or and the Fipresci Prize, which is from an International Association of Film Critics. So what I just said about the jury isn't necessarily the only thing that applies here, because also this group of critics awarded it their pick for the best film. It was also nominated for Best Foreign Language Film at the Oscars and at the Golden Globes. So all of what I just said about the quirks of Cannes doesn't necessarily apply, because look at all these other groups of people that are awarding this film.
I think, Josh, just on our sensibilities, loving Pee-wee's Big Adventure from 1985, maybe this one doesn't fit exactly with what we were looking for. But
I mean, maybe. I feel like I can enjoy films like this.
Film
I can.
festival.
Oh, yeah.
We all can, man. I just think this one didn't connect for me, and certainly not for Idiot Dave. So,
Yeah, well, that was a real generous assessment of Dave's faculties. That
Wait a second. I called Eastwood an idiot, so I'm comparing him to Eastwood. Dave, you're the Clint Eastwood of this podcast, and not just because of your right-wing views or whatnot.
Yeah, sure.
Good
I'm
job.
also very old.
Yeah.
And grizzled, and you use outdated racial terms for Asian people. You're a Gran Torino.
This is Emir Kusturica's second feature and second collaboration with screenwriter Abdullah Sidran, who is a renowned poet and writer, also in Yugoslavia. And this movie was partially inspired by his own childhood experiences. It is set in 1950 in Yugoslavia during a historical period that I at least was not familiar with. I think I assumed that Yugoslavia, like all of these sort of Eastern European countries during this post-World War II Cold War period, were aligned with the Soviet Union. But this is during a period when there was a split between Yugoslavia and the Soviet Union. And Tito, the dictator, leader of Yugoslavia, was at odds with Joseph Stalin. And so it was a very fraught political moment when you could be arrested, as we see in this film, for saying the wrong thing. But it seemed like maybe it was even harder to figure out what is the right thing, because it's not just pro-Soviet, but you don't want to be pro-America. It's really just pro-Tito.
Yeah.
So this
just don't say anything about anyone and you'll be fine, right? This is where just comply. Just comply, everybody.
Yeah.
Free America. Josh, one thing I learned, and if you watch the opening sequence of this film, which I did, there is a thing called UMEX. It's a combination of Yugoslav and Mexican, a style of popular music from the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, incorporating elements of traditional Mexican music like mariachi and ranchero, which I thought was really unique. I like those cultural, overlaps that they're like, hey, we can't sing our songs because it'll get us into trouble. But if we sing traditional Mexican working songs, then we have a way out of it.
Right. That's the idea, that this neighbor of our main character is performing Mexican songs, right? Because you don't want to sing an American song. You don't want to sing a Russian song. You got to align, not even aligning yourself, but just sort of like appreciating the culture of some country that has no relationship with Yugoslavia, essentially. And that's where we're at with that. And the plot here is that our young main character, who I think is 6 or 7 years old, his father does not actually go away on business, but in fact is arrested and sent to a work camp because of what seems like an innocuous remark that he makes. But he is reported by his mistress to his brother-in-law, who is a higher-up party official, and really a dick, because he sends his own brother-in-law to this work camp. And so that's the idea here. It's a family drama. All of that political context is interesting and, of course, meaningful to the filmmakers. But at its core, this is a story about a family that is torn apart and how they try to put themselves back together, which I think is an easy thing for people to understand or identify with, maybe.
I've never been to a work camp of any type, so I'm having a tough time identifying with it.
I mean, but the idea of a family being torn apart by external factors and trying to hold together, I think, is something that people can understand.
Thankfully, Josh, my family was torn apart by internal factors.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Jason. So it's hard to find box office figures on films like this. It did gross $16,000 in the US and I believe open in one theater. So not a hugely widely released film. But on the other hand, again, nominated at the Oscars and played at film festivals and things like that. I couldn't find any larger worldwide figures other than for some reason $25,000 in West Germany, but I assume it was released throughout Europe and presumably made more money there than it did here in the US, but obviously not a big hit from a box office standpoint. But the acclaim helped Emir Kusturica become this major filmmaker on the world stage coming from Yugoslavia. And certainly that gave him a higher profile with this film.
Good job, Cannes.
Jason disagrees.
No,
instead, we need to give a higher profile to Clint Eastwood.
Especially in the 80s. Who even knew what he was up to then? So.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I just think that, Cannes and I have, throughout the years, divergent tastes. And, a lot of the time we've agreed to see other movies and, that's okay. That's all good. So
it is. But I think it's also good for us to explore these areas, perhaps, and wonder what is wrong with us. Because critics in the US thought this movie was fantastic.
Well,
they loved
that
it.
said, whatever the critics say is not going to help me get to the bottom of what is wrong with me.
That is fair. But we'll see what they say anyway. So Janet Maslin in the New York Times said, "This warmly appealing Yugoslav film makes charming use of 6-year-old Malik and his outlook without sacrificing a larger and more knowing directorial overview. While offering a humorous, richly detailed portrait of Malik and his family, the director, Emir Kusturica, whose second feature this is, also outlines the political climate in which the story unfolds. Mr. Kusturica, working from a screenplay by Abdullah Sidran, creates a wonderfully vivid sense of the various family members and their life together. His expert, measured direction is able to weave all these disparate elements together into a gentle, touching film alive with humanity and humor."
I mean, this is maybe a common refrain from me, but I think you could have cut 30 minutes out of this movie and had an equally as effective film.
Yeah, that is a common refrain from you. And I don't necessarily disagree in general that I tend to get frustrated with longer films. It's not that this film is it's definitely not as long as Winter Sleep.
No, I don't care. I'm not saying I get frustrated with longer films. Like, dude, you want to take a break and go watch Heat right now? I'll do it. But I just felt like this one and, Winter Sleep is another example of economy of scale. Maybe we're repeating the similar beats over and over again. And if we eliminate those, it leads to a more efficient piece. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it did feel a bit repetitive toward the end and certain things that keep happening, like our main character, Malik, he's a sleepwalker and he keeps wandering off in the middle of the night. And, the way that we examine the father's extramarital activities. And I felt like there was a certain point where maybe the movie could have ended and then it just kept going. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure that I would have, if this movie was a bit shorter, that I would have been really locked in with it. I think I just wasn't engaged with the characters so much. And Malik, the kid, was just kind of bland and annoying.
Here he goes, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, I think that's a key thing for a movie like this. It really is. And this is a common, another film we talked about, like the Abbas Kiarostami film, Where is the Friend's House? And these movies where it's here is this turbulent political period, or here is a society where there's a lot of repression, there's an authoritarian regime or whatever, and we're looking at it through the eyes of a child. And that can be a really rich storytelling technique because you get a fresh perspective. and you're able to focus on just kind of everyday life because these kids are not politically involved or anything. But I think the kid really has to be someone who can hold the audience's interest. And I didn't feel that way.
But you don't think that, because I would reference Kolya, where we had a great, very similar in that what we're talking about, same kind of geographic location, relationship between older people and kids, looking at it through kids' eye. And all you did was trash that kid, Josh.
Right. Well, I mean, I still think, I think my point still stands. The idea there is that for you in that film, in Kolya, it did work because you thought the kid was good and you were engaged with the kid actor and the character, and I wasn't. But the idea of what makes the movie good, what makes the movie worthwhile is still the same, is that you have to be all in with that kid. And I think sometimes it doesn't work. And maybe sometimes it works for different audiences. I mean, clearly with this movie, it works for a lot of people, but not for you or me.
Do you think if there were more circumcisions, you would have liked the film better?
Man, the circumcision, I was just shocked about that. And there's more kid genitals later in the movie too, not only in that scene. So
Dave and I win this battle. So by watching the YouTube cut. So
I mean, I'm just saying in general, I'm always making an effort to watch the most authentic cut of the film whenever we do these episodes.
That's the way it should be. We're just lazy pieces of shit.
That's fair. I mean, this is a movie that is, not widely available. It is available on DVD, and I was able to get it from the library, but it's definitely an older DVD. Wasn't super high quality either, but at least it's not been censored. So Richard Corliss in Time magazine said, "When Father Was Away on Business can be seen as political satire in microcosm. As Kusturica said recently, there were a lot of sleepwalkers in Yugoslavia back then, but its viewpoint is applicable beyond Eastern Europe. It suggests that life is a series of small revolutions against and accommodations to the prevailing power, whether ideological, social, sexual, or parental, and that flight into a dreamscape like Malik's may be the only sensible solution. The little boy's somnambulism leads him to a consuming first love, to the top of a mountain, and, in the final shot, into delicious complicity with the viewer. In the mind or in movies, we can all be rebels."
Two things I took from that. First time on Awesome Movie Year, we've got to use the term somnambulism, so that's exciting. Yeah. Secondly, he looked at it in a way deeper. Maybe I just didn't have the historical context, although I was aware enough of it, but I didn't look at any of the symbolism of the sleepwalking. I missed that whole thing. So I'll show myself out right now.
Yeah, no, I didn't get that either. I wanted to include that because I thought that was a really interesting idea. And it's not just the critic there making this observation, but Kusturica, having said that, obviously intends that to be a metaphor for the idea that people are, and I think we can understand this in our current moment here, is that you sleepwalk through, you don't maybe want to be aware of larger forces. Now, as a 6-year-old, maybe you don't have to be, but if you're talking about that as a metaphor, a lot of these adults, you just kind of want to put your head down and go about your everyday life and not think about what is being done in the country by the people in power. And that is, it makes sense as a metaphor. I didn't necessarily catch that. And in part because I think I was looking at this as primarily a family drama first and then this political context second. But it makes sense.
This gives new insight into Brennan from Step Brothers and his sleepwalking. I'm going to have to rewatch that for all the political undertones going on there.
Well, Adam McKay is a quite political filmmaker, so maybe he was getting in on that early.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Piecing it together, Step Brothers. When Father Was Away on Business.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So even Variety, in their typically terse style, was very positive about this film. In their uncredited review, they said, "Pick is seen through the eyes of 6-year-old Malik, and it's his rather witty commentary on the events about him that sets the tone of this finely etched tragicomedy. Pick scores as a film of irony and sarcasm, imbued with, quote, human comedy tenderness, rendered much in the style of Czech comedies during the mid-1960s. So FYI, that's where I got that from. I didn't necessarily get there on my own.
Well, I mean, that goes back to kind of the Milos Forman stuff, the Fireman's Ball and stuff. But yeah, I missed all that. I'm not going to lie, Josh. I didn't think that. I mean, Malik is funny in the way that 6-year-olds are funny. He, like, when he's talking about his friend, he just hates it if you call him fatso, stuff like that. But yeah, I guess all the subtext, I'm just an idiot, guys. I'm just a real idiot. So.
I mean, I didn't necessarily I didn't pick up on the symbolism of the sleepwalking, and I don't know that I noticed all the subtext. I didn't find it particularly funny, but Jason, I think you get what is meant to be funny about it, which is that he's a kind of goofy 6-year-old, and he does what 6-year-olds do, even in the context of this very serious situation of his father being arrested and, everyone having to be on edge about what's going on in the country. But he's still 6, and he still is like playing with his friend Fatso and having a crush on a girl and all the normal things that little kids do.
Right. I think that's what you take from it is no matter if you're in communist Yugoslavia or fascist America today, kids are going to just be kids, right? No matter where they are. And they make the best of it because that's what kids do. Like his big dream is to have a football, which we would call a soccer ball. But, and that's it. They have their soccer ball, their football, and they play in the courtyard. And that's great for them. I miss those days where hey, it's after school. We could just go play football in the street. And that was like what I did for 2 hours every day after school. And I was very happy doing that.
Yeah. Well, I never did that.
You guys want to play some football?
I didn't want to play football when I was a kid either.
Come on, we can play tackle.
But oof. Yeah. No, but I mean, you're right, obviously, about the carefree nature of being a kid. I mean, I went home and watched cartoons, I'm sure, instead, but it was still the same idea that, you don't have to think about what's going on in the larger world. And hopefully you have responsible parents who are adults and who are dealing with that stuff. And you can just be a kid. But I'm just saying, Jason, I don't think that you missed some humor here or whatever. Maybe there was some political subtext that we both missed, but I think the humor is pretty basic. This is a goofy little kid, and that's not hard to understand.
Sweet.
Yeah. All right.
I find it hard to understand though why that's then a comedy.
I mean, I think it's a tragic comedy as it's referred to here. I mean, it's not like a hilarious laugh out loud movie. I think it's a sad family drama with elements of comedy.
I guess I just look at that as elements of just reality, and like that's good. There's value in that, but like I find a lot of the reactions to this movie very confusing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I feel like I can say I didn't have the same positivity, but I understand like why people would feel that way about this movie. You didn't understand that, Dave? You don't feel like?
No. I just thought it was just like a stark view of real life at that moment in time. The word comedy, and I obviously don't need it to be broad or anything. It just didn't enter the description of the movie to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think when Malik, sets the hooker's skirt on fire to prevent his father from, hooking up or whatever. I mean, it's kind of sad, but it's also funny, or it's also meant to be funny. I mean, I'm not saying I'm laughing out loud at this movie or whatever. I just say I understand where you can point to comedic elements that are sort of moments of levity within this very serious situation.
I mean, that was probably like the 14th worst thing that happened to that hooker that day.
Yeah. Sure. Probably so. It didn't really seem to faze her all that much. It didn't prevent her
from get that money,
going and having sex with Malik's father.
It's interesting because it's a communist nation. How are hookers storing their income in these communist blocks?
Well, I mean, they obviously still have currency. They talk about saving up money, right? Malik saves up money so he can buy the football and then ends up giving that money to his mother. So, I mean, it's not a society without, it's a socialist society, but there's still currency. I don't know all the details about
20% for you, 80% for the state.
Yeah, I'm not sure how the tax structure is. I mean, like I said, I didn't know anything about the the Tito-Stalin schism even, and just read up a little on Wikipedia there. But I feel like we will say none of us are experts in Yugoslavian history. Let's just put that out there right there. So,
but Dave is an expert on paying whores overseas, so maybe he has some insight there.
Yeah, really just going hard on Dave on this episode for no reason.
That's okay.
He's here.
So I
no
assume
reason. He's right there.
I assume none of us had seen this film. And even though, I was certainly familiar or had heard of Kusturica as a major filmmaker, and his 1995 film Underground, which is his most famous film that also won the Palme d'Or, I had heard of, but have not seen any of his other films. So Jason, had you been familiar with
I've heard of Kusturica and Solzhenitsyn. And if you combine those two, it almost sounds like Kusturica. This is all new to me, buddy.
All right, fair enough. Dave, I assume you were not familiar with this whole area.
Not at all, but I would consider watching Black Cat, White Cat.
Ah, yes. Any movie that involves a cat. Dave is all.
Does it involve a cat, or is it just a?
I have no idea.
Or just a title.
Name? Yeah.
Well, we'll make you watch it anyway, just to find out. So
too bad there isn't an Ernest type character in this film.
Oh man, Dave. Ernest goes to Yugoslavia.
Ernest goes to state-run work camp.
Yes, perfect.
I mean, they made that. They did make Ernest Goes to Prison, so it's not that different, right?
True.
Ernest Goes to Jail or whatever. So,
yeah. It's very similar. What if Emir Kusturica had directed an Ernest film, perhaps after winning the Palme d'Or?
Hey, Vern, what'd you say about the party?
Anything else you want to say about the background of this film, Jason?
Well, no, I'm glad you brought up the writer, Abdullah Sidran, who is known for the Coffin of Sarajevo. I think that's his most famous piece of writing. And he did a lot of work with, like you said, Kusturica, including, do you remember Dolly Bell?
Yeah, which is it was the film that Kusturica made before this. It's his first film. So this was their second collaboration.
Also, Josh, this was nominated for Best Foreign Language Film at the Oscars and lost to the Argentinian film The Official Story, which also sounds like a harrowing story involving a child.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that, but I did find it amusing that one of the other nominees was Three Men in a Cradle, the French film that was later remade as Three Men.
It's all of these involve young kids. The Official Story is about like two parents who adopt a child who might have been like disappeared or kidnapped by the state or something, and so it's all very very strange parental films in this year for the 1985 Foreign Language Feature Academy nominees.
Yeah, I feel like Three Men in a Cradle, if it's anything like Three Men and a Baby, check out our episode on Three Men and a Baby. Probably less serious than this film and that one that you just described, but I am not sure. So we'll come back and talk some more of our general thoughts on When Father Was Away on Business. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this episode of our season on the films of 1985, we're talking about Cannes Film Festival Palme d'Or winner When Father Was Away on Business from director Emir Kusturica. And I know we were not enthused particularly about this film, but Jason, is there a particular element that you did like about this film?
Yes, I will say, Josh, you know I'm a big fan of like learning about new environments and seeing it, and because Father Goes Away on Business, wink, wink, you get to see multiple kind of areas of Yugoslavia, bigger city, smaller city, work camp area. And I like that. I mean, I did think the boy was good. I know you didn't like him, but that kind of, I thought the family dynamic between the main four and the grandfather who refused to bathe, that was very clear. And all of their points of view were very clear. So it's just when we extend it out with, the brother-in-law, who obviously we know, but like his wife and some of those ancillary characters, that's where it kind of gets muddied to me.
Yeah, I mean, I did find myself at times struggling to keep track of all the relationships. And I think it's clear overall, but there were moments where it was like, okay, who is this and how are they related? There's another brother who comes in who's a soldier, who comes home and at first is like, okay, who is he? And he has this kind of sweetheart who's one of their neighbors. And I feel like I got it all eventually. But there were moments, especially when a character would come in, like when the brother comes home and you're like, who is this guy now? And you have to kind of pick up those context clues and the way that people refer to each other by, various familial relationships. But I did think it was overall like a varied portrait, a sort of a rich portrait of this family where you have, the mother and father and the two kids, and then all of these, in-laws and siblings and all that. And overall, it did give you a sense of what life was like during this period in this place, which I think is what you want out of a movie like this if you're coming from as an outsider, to understand life in this other time and place.
Life is like a box of state-approved chocolates here, Josh. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know, Dave, on your Letterboxd, you said you were confused. And I think the confusing stuff happens early on, right? There's this... So there's a woman who says to the brother-in-law, like, hey, your own brother-in-law is kind of saying maybe the party's going too far. And is like, is that the woman he's having the affair with, the wife? Is that that got a little confusing to me. And then there's that train sequence where I know the cut Dave and I watched was really dark, where he's, I believe, having an affair with his sister-in-law. And that was a little unclear of who was who in that, other than the main guy.
Yeah, I think you've still kind of misunderstood.
Okay, explain it. No, because I went back and rewatched the train sequence, and I'm like, okay, I think he's sleeping with his brother-in-law's wife. But go ahead, explain it to me, because that I'm unclear on.
So yeah, I mean, she is eventually his brother-in-law's wife, but at the time she is not. So the movie opens in this train sequence, and father initially does actually go away on business often, and he uses the opportunities of these business trips to have affairs. And he's having an affair with this woman who, yes, eventually marries the brother-in-law, but as of that point is not married to the brother-in-law. And that is when he makes this remark to her that is ultimately what gets him in trouble about, oh, maybe they're going too far with this political cartoon or whatever. And then we see later on, this woman shows up in their town, and she's like a pilot. And they have this big ceremony where she flies this glider, and she's kind of flirting with the brother-in-law, and he's clearly into her. And they're going to like get together. And that's when she says to the brother-in-law, oh, even your own brother-in-law maybe is questioning this. And that sets things in motion. So they're not together yet. They're not married or anything. But I think the idea is that, and the father says this at one point when he's in the office, having been called in for an interrogation, and he's still like not entirely sure what's going on. And he thinks like the reason for it is because the brother-in-law is like jealous and he wants to get with this woman. And so he's trying to get father out of the way. And he's like, look, I understand. I was with her and now she's with you, and that's cool. And the brother-in-law is like, no, that's not what it is at all, even though it clearly is kind of that. So yeah. I feel like that's what's going on. But It's not that he's like gotten with his brother-in-law's wife. It's more that like he's having this affair with this woman who now his brother-in-law is interested in.
Cool. So that clearly was not very clear to me. I'm not going to lie about that. And then at the end, after they're all back, and now the sister-in-law is like, I didn't mean for, what I said to put you in prison and all this. He still bangs her, and then she tries to kill herself. I got that part.
Right. Yeah, that's the ending. And I mean, clearly the thing about him is that he is very horny. And he doesn't let a little thing like having been informed on and sent to prison stop him from wanting to continue to have sex with this lady.
Respectable.
And now I liked that moment at the end because it's like she sort of tries to kill herself, but she almost does it as like a spontaneous thing. Like she's really upset and she like grabs this cord and wraps it around her neck and kind of lowers herself down. And the cord is attached to the toilet and it just flushes the toilet. And then you see this moment where she just kind of laughs like, oh my God, what was I trying to do there? And this is all that's happened. And then she takes it off. So I like that as a moment of sort of catharsis almost.
Well, I thought she was crying there. So, I mean, to me, that's like a real low. I'm trying to kill myself with a cord of a toilet and I can't even do that. Like how much more rock bottom can you get?
I think it's a mix of that. I thought there was a bit of relief where she was kind of like, what was I just trying to do? But, it's not clear. It's not necessarily clear. But I did think it was a nice moment for her because you see the impact on her. Whereas the whole movie is about, like, she seems kind of carefree, right? She's a hot young woman. She has affairs with these men who are sort of powerful. She makes some offhand remark and gets a guy sent to prison, but she's fine. And, maybe we kind of dislike her. There's a moment where the mother goes and confronts her and is kind of like smacking her or whatever. And I feel like we're meant to be like, yeah, fuck her. But she also, is living under this same regime.
Yeah. Well, she gets smacked around too. You can smack women, whoever you are in this time period. You can just smack the ladies, Josh. Smack my bitch up, as Prodigy used to say. Just smack the ladies, right, Josh? Smack them up. Smack those women, right, Josh?
In the 1950s, regardless of the country, I feel like, unfortunately, yes, that was in fact perfectly acceptable.
So we have Malik and we have his older brother, who's a delightful accordion player. I actually thought that was the most effective scene in the whole film. We know that Malik Malik wants this soccer ball, and he sells something to get some money from like a neighborhood kid, and he's going to buy a soccer ball with it. And the older brother catches him and, not just beating the ladies, beat your younger brother too, drags him home by the ear after giving him a beating, and makes Malik give his mother the money because obviously father's in the work camp now, So that I thought was a really effective scene for a very quiet character who's just kind of in the background, showing like that he understands the responsibility and the weight of what's going on with the family.
Right. Yeah, I liked that. And he was very talented. Like, not only is he a great accordion player, but he makes these like homemade animated movies, right? He gets these unused ends of film from the local cinema, from the projectionist.
Cinema Paradiso.
It definitely made me think of Cinema Paradiso. Yeah. I mean, but he not only is like enjoys films that they go see at the cinema, but he makes little drawings directly onto the film that turn into these animated movies that they hand crank and show. And it looked pretty cool. Like, it was quite a good little animated movie that he made. So, and then he accompanies it on his accordion. Like, man, this guy is going places.
He's a real Charlie Chaplin of the communist bloc, I'd have to say, doing all that stuff. Kind of reminded me, now that you bring it up, it's not the same exactly, but do you remember that documentary that you and I saw about like them black marketing like Chuck Norris movies into the communist bloc in the 80s, and how that like inspired the countries to like get out from under state oppression? I thought that was interesting with the power of cinema, and maybe that's down the line could have happened with this group as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is only in the 1950s and is sort of in the early years of this era, but definitely we don't see, there's a scene where characters, they do go to the cinema, to the movie theater. We don't see what they're watching. We just see the audience, but presumably they're watching some state approved movie. But maybe down the line, right, you get those bootlegs. I think that was into the 80s when when VHS existed. But that was absolutely one of the ways that people in these countries learned about, what was going on in the wider world. There's another movie called Hotel Dallas that someone I went to college with made, that's about Dallas, the soap opera, becoming huge in Eastern Europe as well during the same time period. So it's definitely something that you would think someone like Malik's brother might have found when he gets older and he's an adult. He could be the guy bootlegging, Western pop culture or whatever, because clearly that's his thing. So I could see that.
Yeah. Okay. So on the flip side, we get the dad, father, if you will, Josh, who's yes, he's a whoremonger, of course. You would say maybe not a great husband, but he is a good dad. He loves his kids and, expresses that, they know how much he cares about him and is working for him and everything. But when he gets sent to the prison camp, I don't think we really saw the atrocities and the gulag style life that he had to leave there. And I think that would have been an effective, just 1 or 2 scenes, just showing how terrible his life is for literally making one offhanded remark to a random woman,
Right. I mean, we are not experts in Yugoslavian history, but the impression that I got was that maybe these places were not as bad as like a Siberian gulag.
Sure, I would agree with that. And I mean, and again, once you're sent to a Siberian gulag, you're probably there until you die. Whereas this, it's like, hey, we're, reacclimating you to society now that you've paid your debt and have sworn your allegiance back to the party.
Right. And even when he was in the work camp part, when he was in what is essentially a prison, he's able to have his wife and his child visit. They're able to stay all together in this room. I mean, there's a whole bit about how Malik keeps interrupting them and they can't have sex, but they would have been allowed to. So, I mean, there's a certain degree of, I don't want to excuse some totalitarian regime. I'm sure it was awful, but there's a degree of leniency here that maybe we wouldn't expect in like the Soviet Union or certain other authoritarian eras and places that we've seen depicted or learned about in history.
Dave, who's your favorite communist dictator?
Can't say I have a list. I'm going to have to do a little research.
You like them all the same?
Exactly.
Top 5 communist dictators.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Dave's always been a Pol Pot guy, Josh.
That's good. Sure. So I want to ask Dave, though, because you really did not like this movie and you gave it a very negative rating. And I feel like, Jason, we have found a lot of interesting stuff here, even if maybe we didn't love this. But why did you hate this so much, Dave?
I was too lost to find any of that interesting stuff. And I afterwards, or even during, I had to pause it at times and just kind of look around and see what the fuck am I supposed to get out of this movie? And I read reviews and like, that sounds interesting. That sounds cool. And even some of the things you guys are talking about, I never got them. And there was one point where I paused it and I went and looked up a synopsis. I mentioned this in my review. I was reading the synopsis and I was like, when did any of this happen in what has been entering my eyeballs? So, I didn't see any of it.
So, Dave, you watched the same thing I did, the YouTube cut, right? Which is a full movie without Josh's explicit circumcision scenes.
Right. Oh, we can get into what else is in there that maybe you guys missed.
Okay. But I think, Dave, would you agree with me? The confusion to me starts with that train scene. It's so dark. You're not. Sure. So really, it's that act 1 that maybe that's our fault for not getting the same print as you. But that's where I was like, okay, I had to actually go back and be like, check this to make sure I kind of was on track. That said, I was aware of the communist rule and, the kind of society they lived in and the family dynamics. So I think it just, for whatever reason, did that just take you out of it more, you think, or?
I think that definitely was a big part of it. But I also just think that I just had trouble latching onto anything based on the overall point and what I've read in reviews. I was thinking of Kenneth Branagh's Belfast as a movie that this is kind of in step with. And that movie, I got who the characters were. I understand what they were going through. I understand what was helping them get through everything that they were going through. In this movie, I didn't understand who I was watching or who I was kind of following. And
so you're saying the basic plot events of the movie were unclear to you?
They just were completely unclear to me. Yes. Okay. 100%.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, to me, again, I was I did also at one point pause and look up the historical context because that, like I said, the Tito-Stalin split and all that I was not familiar with. But the basic, who are these people and what are they doing and why? I did not feel like I had too much trouble following. So I don't know. Maybe again, it was certainly easier to see in the print that I had. Although again, it's not a super high quality print. It's certainly an old DVD. It's not even properly. It's window boxed if you watch it on a widescreen TV. But maybe this is a movie that deserves some sort of restoration. Mean, it won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. It's from a major world filmmaker. You would think it would have a better release than it does. So I want to ask, we haven't talked about the little girl that Malik falls in love with when they move to, is it Zvornik, I think is the name of the town? Yeah. After father is released from the work camp, but he's still not released from his duties, right? He's sent to this town and given this job and he doesn't have a choice, and the family moves there with him. And their neighbor is this older Russian doctor who has a young daughter and who has some sort of unspecified terminal illness. We don't know exactly what it is, but Malik sort of falls in love with her. And I thought that was sweet. And we have his little voiceover, and it's, part of that is that little contrast with the child where he's like, and on that day I fell in love.
Yeah,
and
it was nice. And then he tells her, I love you more than I love myself. I've never loved anyone like I love you. That was nice.
Yeah. So I agree. I did think that was nice. And I think it works better because these movies, I don't know about I think Cinema Paradiso does have this where it's like the adult looking back on it and the voiceover is from the adult version of the character as a sort of nostalgic perspective. But I think because the voiceover here is from the kid, it adds to that level of kind of naivete. Like, oh yeah, of course I felt like I fell in love when I was 6 years old. So that's nice. But did you guys have the scene where they take a bath together?
No.
Not the whole scene at all.
No, I didn't get it.
Not even just the nudity.
I don't think so.
No, we had a scene where he was sleepwalking and the girl's dad put him in the same bed.
Right.
I don't know. I have no idea what
Yeah. So you guys missed on this whole scene. And I believe it's after that, right? Because he sleepwalks and he walks to her house and the dad puts him in bed with her. And so he sleeps there. And then the next day they're, getting dressed and washed and whatever. And the little girl is in the bath and he gets in the bath with her. And they do the little kid thing of comparing their genitals, and it's all on screen right there, both of them.
Wow.
So I don't know. I didn't see anything about whether any of that was ever censored. Obviously not for an American DVD release that is easy to get. And no commentary that I noticed either in the reviews from the time or in people on Letterboxd, and maybe a lot of people who log it on Letterboxd or watching it on YouTube like you guys did in the censored version. But I thought it was interesting that was, it's not exploitation. It's not meant to be titillating or whatever. It's matter of fact, but something where the parents of those kid actors presumably had to sign off on that. And it's unexpected, let's say.
Yeah, I agree with you, right? It's just I used to take baths with my brother when, I was growing up. And then on my birthday, I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm 26. It's too much. But no, that's that's a thing, especially they're not rich people, right? That's a thing that kids do. I think probably right now with everything going on in America, we're all on hyper alert for anything like that. So it would not be something I would say you would want to film at this point in time. And maybe that's just a different time. And I understand what you're saying. Matter of fact, do not mind not getting that in our cut, Josh.
Yeah. And I do wonder if maybe whoever uploaded this on YouTube was aware of terms of service on YouTube or whatever, that if you show child nudity, even in this artistic, non-sexual way, that you're going to get flagged and your video is going to get taken down. And it's already a copyright violating upload anyway. I don't know. But I thought that was an interesting aspect of the film, and also interesting that someone made, as far as I know, there's no official version that has that censored. So some YouTube guy had to go through and take that stuff out.
Dave, I'm glad you and I watched it on YouTube and didn't go to the snuff video store that Josh got his.
AKA the Clark County Library System.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about that, Josh. I think you got a different, more explicit film than we got. It sounds
I sure did. So it's interesting though that whole scene was taken out, where obviously the circumcision scene is still in there, just not the particular shots that show the graphic stuff. Yeah. I also was unsure, why are they getting circumcised at age 6 and 10?
I did research that. It's because it's their Muslim, and that's the Muslim custom of that age. You get it, when you're, I guess you're a little older or something. But,
okay. Yeah. I did not realize that. And it was I realized they were Muslim, but only because I looked up later that both the author and Kusturica himself grew up Muslim in Yugoslavia. And so that's their background, but it was sort of unclear to me. So that is good to know. So I feel should we rate this out of 5? I don't even know. What do you want to say? 5 work camps?
Sure. 5 communist work camps. I mean, honestly, I can respect it. I think I would be generous if I went to 2.5. But I didn't really like it. I gave it 2 communist work camps.
Yeah, I give it a 2.5. I also can respect this, and I can see how you could find more into it. I just couldn't quite engage with the personal aspects of the story. So 2.5 work camps from me, but I'm glad that I saw it. Dave, how do you rate this?
1.5 work camps from me, but hey, maybe on that restoration, I'll rewatch it. And by the way, we watched a shorter cut because it was missing those scenes and still didn't like it. So Jason, the it being shorter didn't help.
Yeah,
I mean, it was like 3 minutes shorter
off of it.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't cut as much as Jason, I think, would want. But certainly that didn't make a difference. No. So we'll come back and talk about the legacy of When Father Was Away on Business. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this episode of our season on the films of 1985, we are talking about the Cannes Film Festival Palme d'Or winner, When Father Was Away on Business. And as we're saying, I mean, this is early in Emir Kusturica's career, but part of his launch into a status as a major world filmmaker. He had multiple films at Cannes, and he did win the Palme d'Or again in 1995 for Underground, which is his most famous film. And I was kind of curious, like early on, Jason and I discussed like, oh, what else could we watch for this episode? And that is what would be probably the one. And unlike this film, that is easy to watch here in the US, but it's like 3 hours long. And I don't think either of us were up for that.
I wouldn't even have watched it if it was a 2 hour and 57-minute cut, Josh.
That is fair. So, but that is his most well-known film. He's mostly continued to make films in Yugoslavia and then in Serbia, which is the part of Yugoslavia where he's from. He did, however, in 1993, come to the US and make his one English language film, Arizona Dream, which I had not heard of, but stars Johnny Depp, Jerry Lewis, Faye Dunaway, Lily Taylor, and Vincent Gallo. And that is a cast right there.
I would have watched that. That'd have been interesting. So.
Yeah, I don't know if that's widely available either.
What are you doing here in Winslow? Lavin, schmavin, bloigs.
I'm sure that's exactly how that movie unfolds. That sounds
I feel good about it.
Accurate. Yeah, that's good. Continues to work in most recent film from 2018, which was a documentary about a Uruguayan politician, Jose Mujica, and lives in a village that he built for his film Life is a Miracle.
Yes. This was my favorite thing about researching him, Josh. So, obviously these areas were like war torn and bombed out, right? So it's called Vengrad, and he built it for Life is a Miracle in Serbia. And it's where he lives. It's got cultural centers, movie theaters, ice skating rinks. He's built a whole town, which is a cultural epicenter for him and other artistic types to live in, which I think is amazing. And I mean, we've obviously, we're down on this film, but like you said, he's a major figure and an important filmmaker throughout the world. So.
Right. I mean, and I think because of that, there aren't a ton of Yugoslavian or Serbian filmmakers who achieve that status. He becomes this kind of cultural ambassador and cultural leader for where he's from, and, builds that town, and he has a festival there every year and things like that, and really is key to promoting culture there. And I think unlike some of these filmmakers like Milos Forman, for example, who started out in Czechoslovakia and then came to the US and, became a Hollywood filmmaker, Kusturica, maybe because that 1993 Johnny Depp movie didn't succeed, he stayed in Yugoslavia or in Serbia and continued to make films there and work, as part of, again, sort of an ambassador for culture there. That said, he also does appear to be a supporter of Vladimir Putin. So,
well, I didn't realize that. But otherwise, I was like, this is cool. He's got his own art town, and he's making movies. But Josh, a few of the actors, Mira Furlan, we knew as Rousseau on Lost. And she was treated, I guess, very badly as an actor in Yugoslavia, to the point where after she died, they made like multiple apologies to her about the way that she was treated, I think, in like theater troops out there. Pavle Vujic, who played the dad the grandpa who doesn't bathe. Orson Welles once said that he considered him the best actor in the world. And that's what I got for you, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, Mira Furlan was the one that stood out to me because she is not only, on that role on Lost that we all know, but she did a lot of American TV. She was a regular on Babylon 5 and, did American films, and then eventually kind of returned to Serbia and Croatia to do work there after, as you said, they issued these apologies to her. The rest of these actors, you go through the list and almost all of these are like, one of Serbia's most famous actors, Miki Manojlović, which I'm sure I'm mispronouncing, who plays the father, still working, and Mirjana Karanović, who plays the mother, also still making films, mainly in Serbia. Manojlović also works in other films in Europe. So this cast is full of actors who went on to be like prolific stars in their native countries, except for Moreno De Bartoli, who plays Malik, had only one other credit right in 1986 on some TV show. And it's common, we talked about this like in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory recently, where these kid actors, they get a big role, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they go on to have a whole acting career. But this was certainly a showcase for him.
Yeah, and the kid who played the older brother killed himself when he was like 29, so that was sad.
Yeah, that is. Abdullah Sidran, also the writer, a major figure in literature in Serbia, continuing to release books into the 2020s. So, this is a platform for a lot of important artists from this area, at least, even if we're not really familiar.
We're just too dumb to appreciate it.
That is the motto of this podcast.
Awesome movie year. Too dumb to appreciate your film.
Yeah. So anything else you want to mention about the legacy of this movie?
Nope. Fatso.
All right. Well, I don't like when you call me Fatso.
Sorry, I take it back. So
that is When Father Was Away on Business. And that is this episode of Awesome Movie Year. You can report us to the Communist Party online and on social media.
I mean, the far left and far right are almost the same thing. So we have fascism now. So why not? We're at awesomemovieyear.com, Awesome Movie Year on Facebook and Instagram. And I'm at Jason Harris Comedy or Jay Harris Comedy on all the things. If you watch one of our movies, go to the Letterboxd, tag it Awesome Movie Year. Follow me, Go for Jason, where you won't read about how I was confused by this film.
You can find some old things from me at joshbellhateseverything.com. I'm at Josh Bell Hates Everything on Facebook, at Signal Bleed on Blue Sky and on Letterboxd. And you can check out our producer, David Rosen's awesome podcast, Piecing It Together.
Check out Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts and follow us on social media at Piecing Pod.
Jason, what's in our next episode?
Josh, it's time for a documentary by one Mr. Ken Burns. It's called The Statue of Liberty, and I'm not even going to tell you what it's about.
It's about communist Yugoslavia. So tune in next time for The Statue of Liberty, and thanks for listening to Awesome Movie Year.
Thank you for listening to Awesome Movie Year. Make sure to follow Awesome Movie Year on Facebook, at Awesome Movie Pod on Twitter, and at Awesome Movie Year on Instagram. And if you like the show, review us and rate us with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
An All Points West production.